Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier League title race has just had a twist. David Ornstein, in several reports today, reported that Manchester City's midfielder Rodri is expected to miss the remainder of the 2024-25 season. And before I even get into what it means for City, what it means for the Premier League, what it means for Arsenal, what it means for City's hopes in Europe, all that stuff, right? Before we get into that, let's talk a little about Rodri. First of all, speedy recovery to the guy. Thoughts and prayers to him. Hopefully he's back on the pitch soon, because although he plays for my rivals, I'm sure Arsenal fans today are rejoicing because it's a big blow for City and possibly elevates Arsenal's hopes. At the end of the day, these guys are just footballers, man. These guys are just humans that play a sport for a living. So never want to see a player, especially of the level, the quality of Rodri, kind of be out for as long as he is. And I think it's sad too, right? Because he was probably the biggest advocate of late for players playing too many games throughout a season, player welfare. He was even hinting that there might be a strike coming soon if players aren't really given more respite in between games and stuff like that. And I understand that the injury he picks up, right? It's an ACL, and it's a contact injury, so it's not really he's running too much. You know what I mean? It's not like he was playing 60 games and then he tore his ACL. It was a bit of a contact one. But damn, man, it's just a little sad. So shout out to Rodri. Hopefully he's back soon, because football is definitely a better sport when he's kind of amongst the forefront of it. But moving away from the personal side of things, right? Let's talk about the football now. Is Rodri the single most important player for any team in the Premier League? If he's not number one, he's got to be in the top three. I think I look at Van Dijk, and I think if Liverpool were to lose Van Dijk, we've seen it in the past, they would really, really struggle. And after that, genuinely, I don't think I can... Okay, you can look down the league, right? Chelsea, if they lose Palmer, that's a big one, 100%. But maybe I'm thinking of the bigger teams, right? But I look at how important Rodri is for Manchester City. It cannot be quantified. And look, on face value, you could look at this and say, if any team is equipped to kind of lose a guy like Rodri for as long as they are, it's Manchester City. You've seen it in the past, right? They missed De Bruyne for large parts of 2 separate seasons. And in both those years, I think they went on crazy unbeaten runs. Both times he was out. They've shown they can live without Kevin De Bruyne. Not taking away anything from Kevin De Bruyne's greatness, but his importance can be replaced in that City team. You look at Erling Haaland, missed parts of last season as well too. I mean, look, City have played without a striker at times before Haaland came in. They're able to score goals in different ways. Not to take anything away from Erling Haaland's greatness, but he's not the most important player on that City team. When I look at how important a defensive midfielder is to the way Pep Guardiola's teams play, and especially how vital Rodri has been to everything in the engine room for Manchester City. You look at last season, right, where he put together a campaign that's literally seeing him as a favorite for the Ballon d'Or for last season. Rodri played one of the most complete seasons from a midfielder of the last 10-20 years last year for Manchester City. He was tasked with kind of being the hub and build-up. He was asked with progressing the ball. He was asked to be the guy who basically carries the ball forward. He was asked to be the guy who's switching it all across the pitch. And he was even asked to basically be the guy finishing off the moves that he was probably starting himself. He played the role of an all-action midfielder. But even before last season, right, he is so vital to being the guy that stops Manchester City being hit in transition. He's so important to being the rock in midfield, to allow the guys like Foden and Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne to allow them to kind of have their offensive liberties. He's the center of everything Manchester City do well. In my opinion, he was the best player in the league last year. Nothing to take away from the Phil Fodens of the world. They all had amazing seasons. But for me, I thought Rodri was the best player in the league last year, and he would be in my top 3 for Ballon d'Or. I think he was that brilliant throughout the entire season. So for Manchester City to lose him is devastating for them. I don't think I can put it any other way. Now, I think the worst part about this for Manchester City as well too is that this was always a massive possibility. And I think if I'm a Manchester City fan today, I would be very, very disappointed with my board. And that's not something I think Manchester City fans often think about when it comes to their club. You look at the business City have done, particularly since Pep Guardiola came to the club, and they've been smart in the transfer window. They've made good moves. They don't overspend typically if they don't have to. They don't bring players in for the sake of it. I think you could argue that that's the case, right? But this summer, right, we've all looked at Manchester City for the last 2 seasons, I would say, and thought to ourselves, maybe a deputy to Rodri is really needed. They went for Calvin Phillips a few years ago, and that move just never transpired. It just never worked out, right? But last season, you look at it, how many games Rodri played for Manchester City, or played in general throughout the entirety of the season, both for Spain and Manchester City. I think it easily totaled over 60 games. So this is a guy that is rapidly collecting heavy mileage on his legs. He is being overworked. And that's just in terms of the minutes he's playing. You look as well too. the load of responsibility that he carries on his shoulders for both club and country, a burnout was always coming. So like I said, the ACL injury, it's separate to his claims about footballers are playing too much. I get that. But it's not a surprise that Rodri has picked up any kind of injury because of the amount of football he's played. And you made the mistake of not getting a deputy last year. This summer, I think it was vital for Manchester City to not make that mistake and prioritize a deputy to Rodri in the window. And I think now, what's the expression, right? Like the consequences of your own actions are kind of coming to light now. Manchester City's failure to find a deputy to Rodri has now left them in a situation where now that he's missing the entirety of the season, that might completely kill off their campaign. I don't want to be dramatic here, but it is that simple. Their failure to adequately find somebody to back up Rodri could directly be the reason why Manchester City don't win in Europe or win the league. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, right? Like I said, if any team is capable of finding a solution about Rodri in world football, it's Manchester City and it's Pep Guardiola. We've seen in the past, Gundogan has played as a defensive midfielder for Manchester City, and he's done it at a really high level. We've seen in the past, they've played with a double pivot of like John Stones inverting, and you've seen Kovacic as well this year to really do a good job kind of playing it as a deeper lying midfielder. But none of those guys are Rodri. And let's face it as well too, everything I'm saying, that was part of a different Manchester City. When Gundogan was playing defensive midfield for Manchester City, that was a completely different team. It doesn't mean now that you can take, especially a Gundogan who's a few years older now as well too, drop him in that same position for this team and hope for the same results. That's not a guarantee. But I do believe if there's any manager that can find a solution here, it is Pep Guardiola. What that solution is yet to be seen. Again, like I said, do we see a return to John Stones kind of inverting into midfield constantly in possession like he did a few seasons ago? Perhaps. Do we see a return to İlkay Gundogan playing as the deepest lying midfielder? Perhaps. Me personally, I think you're going to see City playing two deep lying midfielders this year with the absence of Rodri, because there's not a like for like with him. What's that kid's name? O'Reilly, he played a bit in preseason in the Community Shield. He's not ready to hold base for Manchester City for a 38-game season. It's impossible. I think you could often see Bernardo and Kovacic or Bernardo and Gundogan or John Stones and Gundogan. I think that's how Pep Guardiola is going to try and replace Rodri. I think it's going to be two rather than one. And yeah, Lotier is here saying, so the 3-2-4-1 they were already doing. Yes, but they were doing it to kind of allow Rodri time to come back into the team. I don't think that was a long-term plan for Pep. I think it's like, okay, this is how we survive while we give Rodri the necessary rest to kind of get back to his best level. Now, what was potentially just kind of like a stopgap may have to be the thing they continue going on for the rest of the season. But yeah, man, it's a big one. And if you're Arsenal and you're Liverpool, and I would even say you're Real Madrid, you're Inter, you're Barca, you're Bayern Munich, you're looking at the heartbeat of probably the most dangerous team in world football go down for the rest of the season. There is an opportunity to be claimed here. We'll start in the Premier League. Arsenal Football Club. I don't want to say the title has just been put at your feet because I don't think it's that simple. For me, Pep, as long as he's at the helm at Manchester City, I've said it time and time again, he will build a squad that at minimum gets you mid 80 points. That's at minimum. That's a bad season for Manchester City. They will be there till the end, Rodri or not. However, this injury right now has, for me, possibly shifted the momentum in terms of who I believed was the favorite for this year's title race. I think it's that big. Rodri missing the entire year makes me believe that Arsenal are going to win the league this year. I think so. And you know what it is, right? Arsenal, they only play City one more time, right? So Arsenal, this injury doesn't really impact them so much. They still have to go and do their thing. In the last 2 years, you've seen them basically go from high 80s to low 90s, like. That's what they need to strive to get again. The difference now is, though, are they going to be going up against another 90-point team? So now Manchester City are going to have to, again, maintain this perfection that they've basically put as the standard year in, year out, without arguably, for the last calendar year, the best midfielder in the world. That's tough, bro. That's tough, man. I don't know for me if City are still the favorites, bro. I'll be real. You think they'll try rushing him back? Impossible. For me, it's like the Van Dijk thing. You don't rush it back. Give Rodri the time to he needs time off anyways, bro. I'm not saying that like it's a blessing in disguise or whatever, but Rodri should take the year off and come back next season fresh and fit. But I look at Liverpool as well too. Again, Liverpool are not the perfect team either. They have holes in their squad as well too, but why can't Liverpool go and challenge for the league? Why not? Even before this Rodri injury. They have 4 all-world players as far as I'm concerned, in their goalkeeper, their right back, their center back, and their right winger. They have a manager that's taken to life at Liverpool in the Premier League, like no problem. They have role players around those world-class players that are playing at a damn high level right now. And for me, they've addressed their biggest issue from last season, going behind early, conceding loads of chances. And then when you look at the likes of Luis Diaz, who's playing in the form of his life, Jota, who's an established goal scorer in this league, and Darwin Núñez, who is, bro, a head case and you don't know what to expect, but is capable of providing you moments. Gakpo can provide you moments over a season. Chiesa is an X factor. Why can't Liverpool challenge for this league? Why not? For me, the Rodri injury has completely opened up this league. Completely. And you could still say City are the favorites. I don't hate that. But for me, the pendulum has shifted a little. The pendulum has shifted a little with this Rodri injury. And I think that's impossible to argue that. The question as well, too, do City make a signing in January? I think they have to. I remember, right? And obviously it's a different time in football, but I remember 2011-12 when Manchester City won their first league title in God knows how long, right? A lot of guys aren't going to remember this, but Mancini in January had a great team, right? It was like in the midfield room, you had Toure, De Jong, Gareth Barry, Silva, Nasri, the front. They had 4 world-class strikers as far as I'm concerned. It was a great team. But Mancini thought that in the middle of the park, maybe they were a little light on bodies. And he made the signing that probably most people don't remember. But he actually played a decent role in winning the league. Like, I'm not saying he was integral, but he gave them good minutes. That player was David Pizarro. They got him on loan from Fiorentina, and he actually got them decent minutes here and there. It was just help us get over the line. He went back to Fiorentina at the end of I think it was Fiorentina or Roma. He went back at the end of the season. You never saw him again, but he helped them. And sometimes you need help along the way. I remember United, we won the league one year, and we got Henrik Larsson for like 4 months. And it didn't change life for us, but it's just another body. And that was teams that maybe didn't need that, but it helped them. Manchester City, for me, need another body. In midfield, they need another one, bro. And whether that's a loan, whether that's an option to buy, whether that's making a big statement signing in January, which we've seen them do with Laporte in the past, I think it needs to happen, bro. I don't know if City can compete on all fronts. Like, they can compete, of course. Let me rephrase that. They can compete, but will they achieve their targets if they play the duration of the season without Rodri? I'm not so sure. And I actually think this Rodri injury will hurt them more in Europe than it does in the Premier League. Because in the Premier League, I believe Pep can oversee a 38-game season better than almost any manager I've ever seen in my life. But in knockout football, where teams are going to be, and these great continental managers, kind of like what I said about Arsenal the other day, these great continental managers will be able to game plan for one game. How do we game plan against City? Well, now they don't have Rodri, and in midfield, they might be a little late. I look at a team like Real Madrid. They're probably looking at Manchester City now in transition and licking their lips. If we can get our shit together in February, where we have to play City without Rodri, boy, we could hurt them. I think City needs to make a signing. It's tough. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think they need to add another body in that midfield. Can't they just recall Calvin Phillips? Is Calvin Phillips just going to learn how to play in a City system for the first time in 3 years? Every central midfielder in the transfer market has gone up by at least 30 mil tonight. That's the game, bro. That's the game. But hey, if that's the difference between Man City winning a double or not, that 30 million is going to be nothing. Who do I have as league favorites right now? Genuinely, combined with the result that they got at the weekend, mixed with this Rodri injury, for me, the pendulum has shifted ever so slightly, in my opinion, to favoring Arsenal. Ever so slightly. I'm not saying Arsenal are going to run away with it, but I'm looking at Arsenal now in a different light because of how important I believe Rodri is to that team. People won't give Arsenal or Liverpool as much credit if they win the league now. Hey, that's not anybody's business, man. I can't lie. Like, that's life. Do you think Arsenal and Liverpool are going to care if they don't get credit off Twitter.com? If they win the league? Come on, man. I'm a Raptors fan, right? So if you guys follow the NBA, I'm a Toronto Raptors fan. The only championship I've seen my team win came at the expense of Klay Thompson going down and Kevin Durant going down. You think I give a shit about that? Hey, bro. The game's the game, man. Like I said, at the time I said speedy recovery to them. But if this is what's going to help us get a championship, you think I care about what dudes on Twitter are saying? Allow me, bro. Yeah, facts. Give you your trophy, bro. I think Pep will play Rico Lewis in DM now. Potentially, we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm super interested to see it now, though. I do think it makes... I hate to say it, right? But I do feel it makes the league a little more interesting. Because the way City were looking... Bro, they were looking like they could run away with the league. One thing to be said, though, huh? City have played like the first 5 games basically without Rodri, right? And they've looked pretty good. Before this game, they'd won every single game. So like I said, if any team can do it, it is City. But don't get it twisted. This is a massive, massive loss, bro.